Hey guys, today I'm just going to go over the PSA or the advocacy ad, which is the multimodal component of Project 2. So, as a reminder, in Project 1, the multimodal component was embedded within the text, like that was the pictures and the figures. But for Project 2, the multimodal component is separate. So, what exactly is a public service announcement or an advocacy ad? So, let's just go to Google and let's just type in public service announcement. We'll go to images. Let's click on the first one we see here. Please don't text and drive. So this one is actually pretty simple. It's really straightforward. It's saying it's kind of it's trying to be clever. How it's saying the please just PLS and the don't within text format. And what it says here at the bottom is a public service announcement brought to you by your school and other drivers. So this is very simple. The goal of it is immediately obvious to you. There's not even pictures on here. It's a neutral black background. There's white text. There's subtle bits of blue in there with the and symbol and public service announcement. All right, let's look at another one. So this is a woman whose hair seems to be covered in cigarettes, and it says perfume won't hide it. So obviously here the main goal or argument is that no matter what, you're always going to smell like cigarettes if you smoke, and that no matter what you can do, you can't cover that up. So it's obviously putting a negative connotation on cigarettes and people that smoke. All right, let's look at one more here. Let's do this one. So this one says, what goes into the ocean goes in you. And then it has a little stat at the bottom here that says, recent studies estimate that fish off the west coast ingest over 12,000 tons of plastic a year. Find out how you can help turn the tide on plastic pollution at their website. So this one is also very simple. It has sushi that appears to be wrapped in plastic and plastic in the middle. And it's just very simple saying that polluting our oceans with plastic and trash only comes back to harm us. So it's kind of a full circle there. And it's very simple again. All the ones that we looked at so far have been very straight to the point. This is the first one that we've seen that has a statistic on it, which is a very interesting way to do it, just to throw in a little bit of information to your readers or your audience saying, hey, this really is a problem. Look at this crazy stat of 12,000 tons of plastic a year. That's outrageous. I never would have thought that or even read that if it was an appealing image with the sushi wrapped in plastic. So, going back to this, the main goal of a public service announcement or advocacy ad is to sum up your argument onto just a single page that is appealing. Maybe it has images. Maybe you have some rhetorical appeals like ethos, pathos, logos, something like that. Going back to these, this one definitely had logos with a stat here, and I'd say it's a little bit of pathos because you feel bad for the fish that are ingesting this plastic. And I would say it even has ethos because of this surfrider.org, and it's very seems to be a reputable organization that cares enough to put out this public service announcement about polluting the oceans. Maybe you can have some words and phrases, or maybe even a few sentences describing clearly what your argument is and what side you are on. For that, the cigarettes one, maybe, I know it kind of seems far-fetched, but maybe someone could take that as being pro-smoking cigarettes just because of how they look at it or their background or something like that. So make sure it's very obvious what side you are on and what side you are defending or focusing on. So the main focus of this PSA and what you guys should focus on when you're creating your own is to think about audience and purpose. So who is your audience and what are you trying to persuade them or inform them about? So going back to the examples, let's go to this one. The audience for this PSA is pretty much everybody that can read very simple text, and because it's so easy to understand what it's talking about and why. So their audience is so wide. Well, let's go to something like this. Saying perfume won't hide it is more appealing to girls or women because they are the ones who have perfume most of the time, and having a woman on as the face of this also gives it away that's for that audience. All right, so now the main tips and tricks for this is that it should be immediately obvious what your argument is just from looking at it for a brief 5 seconds. Keep your audience in mind. What would be the most convincing or appealing style for them to look at? For the please don't text and drive one, I think that was very effective. It was just a simple background for somebody to look at for 5 seconds and understand instantly what it is that they're trying to get across to their audience. Now, a main thing that a lot of students want to do with this is just copy and paste their thesis or a few stats, like in quotes from their essay or draft, into their PSA. Now, while that sometimes may be okay, most times it's just going to seem way too formal for the PSA. For example, think if for this polluting one, if it had a whole paragraph about a quote and you analyzing it, it would just seem too much for the reader and too informal and not appropriate for that type of PSA. So be careful there and just be mindful of what it is that you are inserting text-wise into your PSA. Simplicity is key, as we have seen with the please don't text and drive, and even the perfume won't hide it. It's just very simple and straightforward. This one has 5 words with a little bit at the bottom. This one has not even words. This is PLS and DNT. Like, it's very simple wordage there to get their argument across. And lastly, you don't have to be some graphic design expert here. That's not what we're expecting. Don't worry about that at all. All that Jesse is asking for is to create something that immediately grabs the attention of your audience and is effective in proving your point or your main argument of your draft, and it coincides with that well. So you can even use PowerPoint, something basic like that if you would like. I know Blackboard has some mention, like some other websites, something like that you can use to help create this PSA or advocacy ad. But just keep in mind that it doesn't have to be something so complex as, let's see if we can find one. It doesn't have to be so complex like this one right here. Like, this is a very, like, clearly you wouldn't just create this yourself. You had to go in a lot more effort than that. So just keep in mind that we're not expecting something insanely complicated from you guys. So, for example, we have PowerPoint pulled up here. Let's say if I wanted to just make it on PowerPoint. We can, all of these shapes we can choose from. We have flowchart, stars, banners, block arrows, basic shapes, anything like this. Let's just grab a simple oval here. Let's do that. Let's say I'm talking about drug use in San Francisco. So maybe I'll input an image of like a cigarette or some drug paraphernalia, something like that, just to grab the attention of the reader and make sure that they understand what I'm talking about. Maybe down in the corner, I'll put in a little statistic on, this is completely made up, by the way, so let's say like 30% of residents use illegal drugs daily. Now, and I can change the format, I can change the color of this, I can do whatever I want with it to make it more appealing. And then let's say right in the middle, let's use a triangle. Or right off to the side here, I'm going to just say, this is going to be my main point, my main argument that I want the user or reader to understand, and that's just that residents in San Francisco need to be more aware of the drug problem in the city. Or I'm just making this off the fly here, so I probably spelled that wrong. Oops. Sorry, anybody from San Francisco. So obviously I would add more color in here. I would make the background a certain color. Maybe I'd add a couple images, and I'd put in the sources for this quote here, something like that. But the real basic idea is just that you don't have to be an expert on graphic design or any sort of website or anything like that. Just use your resources to the best of your ability and create something that is easy to understand and is effective and to the point. Alright guys, that's all I have for today. And if you have any other questions, just go ahead and email me. Have a good one.